As you know, on Sunday night or Monday morning of every week, we post a new expository semiotics explaining why we would choose which lectionary readings. But in these readings, our dream is and our desire is to help you read the signs and fondle the details and spot the seminal metaphors, the condensed signs and the stories that are key for preaching to a digital culture. So strap on your seatbelt and join us as we prospect our passages for today. Welcome to the third Sunday of Easter. If you're hearing a little pitter-patter, I'm sitting in my star chamber octagon here, and it's raining, and you can hear the rain on the roof. And I love it's when I work the best is when it's raining and you're hearing the rain on the roof. But this is the time for us to look at the lectionary readings for this day. And there are some great ones, and I've chosen the first reading is Acts 2, 14a to 36 to 41. The second one, the Psalm, is Psalm 116, 1 to 4, 12 to 19. There's a First Peter reading. There's a gospel reading, which is the Road to Emmaus story, which I would love to do, but it would take me a little more time than we have. So I want to kind of combine bring the Acts and the Psalm together. And I love how we begin this Acts passage, Acts 2. And it begins with Peter, standing with the 11, raised his voice and addressed them. You could do a whole sermon just on Peter standing with the 11, raised his voice and addressed them. Never go out there and stand alone. We don't stand alone. We stand with each other and in the power and presence of the Almighty. And here it just says it just so succinctly, and we can go over it so quickly. But Peter standing with the 11. Even if the 11 aren't there, you stand with them. Just like when you pray, you don't, even when you go into a closet to pray, you don't pray by yourself. You take the whole communion of saints with you. You take all of the ecclesia with you. And so when you preach, never go into that pulpit or walk into that congregation. You know you aren't standing alone. You're standing with the apostles. You're standing with the saints. You're standing with the angels and archangels. And you're standing, most of all, with the risen and rising, reigning and returning Jesus. And he's exhorting them, and it all comes to the focus on save yourselves from this corrupt generation. The theme for this third Sunday in Easter is it's a mad, 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 mad world. And this is another way of talking about save yourself from this corrupt generation. But that's why I love Psalm 116, 1 to 4, 12 to 19. And I'm just going to read it with you and read it with me. I love the Lord because he has heard my voice and my supplications, because he inclined his ear to me. Here's the very image of the Almighty kind of inclining. It is the incarnational image of God bending down. God's ear. Therefore, I will call on him as long as I live. The snares of death encompass me. The pangs of Sheol laid hold on me. I suffered distress and anguish, then I called on the name of the Lord. O Lord, I pray, save my life. And that save my life means turn that Sheol into a Shiloh. Verse 12, what shall I return to the Lord for all God's bounty to me? I will lift up this cup of salvation. I will call on the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows to the Lord. in the presence of all his people. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his faithful ones. O Lord, I am your servant. I am your servant, the child of your serving girl. You have loosed my hands, my bonds. I will offer to you a thanksgiving sacrifice and call on the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people, in the courts of the house of the Lord, in your midst, O Jerusalem. Praise the Lord. Both of these readings, both of these passages, suggest to us what it means in the presence of Sheol, in the presence of a corrupt generation. How do we lift up our risen, rising, reigning, and returning Lord? And that's why I came up with this theme of it's a mad, 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 mad world. Now, I'm when you think of that, some of you, when you think of that, will think of an original. There was a remake about 20 years later, but the original was in the early 60s, and it was a Spencer Tracy movie, and it had all sorts of some of the greatest comedians of the day: Milton Berle, Buddy Hackett, Mickey Rooney, Ethel Merman. And it was a kind of a comedy on being involved in this crazy world of our day. Mad today means something different, and it's not funny. Even when somebody says, "Oh, they're moving mad," it means they're moving out of character. That doesn't mean they're moving kind of in a funny direction. The first thing you think of when you think of mad probably is mutual assured destruction, a theory of deterrence that says I have enough power to obliterate you if you obliterate me, so you're at a standoff, and everybody's afraid to use their power because I use it on you, you use it on me, and we've lived in a world, a mad world, where it has meant mutual assured destruction ever since the atomic bomb. But the madness of today, the madness of the world that we're living in, is just incomprehensible sometimes. How crazy can you get? How mad can you go? How far from righteousness can you ride? And I'm thinking about something as just this past week. We had a Whole Foods in San Francisco, only been there for a year, and they just up and closed because of the robberies and the shoplifting. Chicago, I was in San Francisco. Chicago lost 4 Walmarts, I think half their Walmarts, because they could not make a profit because of all of the shoplifting and burglary. What kind of madness is this? And these are some of the places that need this kind of these kind of stores the most. You can't but it's as mad as the average grocery store discards $10,000 a day in food. Wasted food. The average grocery store wastes $10,000 a day in food, and that doesn't include the shoplifting and all the burglary. And then we go to from one kind of a simple thing that we can all understand because we've all been at these Whole Foods, or Whole Paychecks, they're also known as, and Walmarts. But we're now hearing about AI, and just as soon as we hear about GPT, we're now realizing, oh no, it's not Chat PGT 1 or 2, it's now 3, and they're turning into 4. Chat. This is artificial intelligence, where each tech company is now in a mad arms race, an AR arms race that is competing who can take. There's 2 kinds of AI, but the kind I'm talking about here is the generative one that can
generate content. But when you hear AI with a G in it, you should be hearing the G stand for God, because every one of these companies, and I'm talking about now, I'm talking about every single Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Chinese companies like Baidu, are all working fervently to produce the most powerful AI in the world. And the problem is that with AI, I mean, it is, and if you ever have, I would encourage you to try out having a conversation with one of these AI offerings from one of these tech companies. I tried it out with Chat GPT. I don't know whether it was 1, 2, 3, or 4, but I could not believe the conversation that we had. I could not believe the intelligence. Basically, what these supercomputers are doing now is just taking everything, all the information on the internet, in books, everything, giving it to this super AI intelligence, artificial intelligence, and expecting it to solve our problems and write our papers and be our counselors, and even address moral and ethical issues. And it's really interesting that people are not realizing that the blessing of the internet is that it contains everything. The curse of the internet is that what? It contains everything. And the problem with AI is that it is taking up both the blessings and the curses, and it's just taking it all in as information. And nobody's out there to say no, to assess what is the good and bad information. And on top of that, well, this is Microsoft. They just did a press release, and they're doing something called Copilot. Okay, they're going to, with their AI chat box, they're going to offer assure us of a Copilot. I want you to listen as I read the press release. Okay. At Microsoft, we are guided by our AI principles and responsible AI standard and decades of research on AI, grounding in privacy-preserving machine learning. A multidisciplinary team of researchers, engineers, and policy experts reviews our AI systems for potential harms and mitigations. That means bad information. Refining training data, filtering to limit harmful content. Okay, so now wait a minute. Who determines what is harmful? And query and result blocking sensitive topics. I love Jesus. I am a Jesus follower. I believe Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. That's a sensitive topic. So are they blocking religious information? I mean, or editing the religious information? I don't. And applying Microsoft technologies like Interpret ML and FairLearn to help detect and correct data bias. We make it clear how the system makes decisions by noting limitations, linking to sources, and prompting users to review, fact check, and adjust content based on subject matter expertise. I don't know what all that, but I do know I'm not trusting Microsoft to tell me what is or not factual, what is or not harmful, what is or not biased, what is or not harmful, and the mitigations. This is a mad, mad world out there. You can now, and this is GPT-4 or 3. You can pay $10,000 right now, and they will fit you up, your whole body, with a reader for 1 month. And they will read everything you do, right? Read your gestures, your mannerisms, your voice, and they will take it in. And when you die, they will give your family an avatar that is as much you, and everything that you may have written or said. And you can have conversations with it, and it's just as if that person. I mean, it's a mad, mad world out there. But I want to suggest there's another, based on our passages for today, there is another acronym of MAD that I want to focus on. That's not mutual assured destruction or just what we're doing with this MAD AI that is getting out of control. But it's a acronym that means if you are to be human, you've got to be a mad human. And mad means move, adapt, or die. And I want to talk about what it means to be a mad disciple of Jesus, using those words, move, adapt, but using die in a different way than what the acronym means out there in the culture. The paradox of life. If you don't move, you die. I mean, it's as simple as that. The paradox of life is in order for things to stay the same, they have to change. When I was growing up, we had something called COD. Sometimes a package would arrive. Our kids have no idea what we're talking about here, but a package would arrive COD. It means change on delivery. It means when the package was delivered, you had to pay for it. COD. The future is coming, COD, but it's change or die. Not charge and on delivery. It is literally death is defined as a body that does not change. That's the very definition of death. So if you are alive, you got to move. You got to change. There's no other alternative. You have to change in order to stay alive. You got to move. And the biggest thing, which we're hearing from, since I've been spending a lot of time writing and trying to get these 2 books out, which I hope will be out in a couple of months, Jesus Human and Designer Jesus. I've been sedentary and got my weight weighed and my blood pressure taken, and the doctor is going, "You got to move, Sweet. You got to move." And you just can't sit there and write and sit on planes. You got to move. You got to move. So literally, it is move or die. We were meant to move. We were meant not to be sedentary creatures, but to move. And this is true of everything. If bridges didn't move, they would collapse. Bridges require irregular rhythms, a marching unit. That's why it breaks stride when crossing a bridge, or it risks collapse. The same with airplane wings. They must have flexible movement built in, or they would tear off in flight. Redwoods move and twist too, like cathedrals. In fact, a grove of them is called cathedrals because they're all like cathedrals. They're built to move because of earthquakes. Buildings, especially tall buildings, are built to sway. There's a flex involved in the very structure, so they don't collapse. All living things, by definition, must change or they stop living. And why are Christians so opposed to change when the fundamental thing Jesus invites us to do is to follow him, which is de facto allowing him to move and to change us? He moves us, he changes us, and we follow him sometimes not only in directions we don't know about, but in directions we don't want to go. That's what it means to move. And so we have got to learn in this mad world to be mad in a good sense, which is, first of all, M for move. The A, adapt. Adapt. I did not say adopt. I said adapt. A mad Jesus human, a mad disciple, is one that moves, is not hostile to change, but embraces a theology of change. Not all change is good, some change is bad. We got to know which is which. But at the same time you change, you adapt to the context that you are in. Darwin is known for his survival of the fittest, and it is a misnomer because that's not really the truth, and it's not really what he said. It's really the survival of the adaptist. Who can adapt the most are the ones that have the best survival rate and the best future. And we're seeing that now in this time of climate change. There are certain species that can adapt really well to the difference in temperature and to the fluctuating weather patterns, but some species can't. And those that are adapting are thriving, and those that are not able to adapt significantly are going extinct. We are to be in touch with the culture, but not in tune with it. So part of the adapting is adapt, not adopt. I am not called to adopt this culture. I am called to adapt to this culture. And to distinguish between trends that are opposed to truth versus trends that can help trajectory us, put us on the path of truth. And that's why I'm very hesitant around that word relevant. I don't like the word relevancy because we associate it with recency. Whatever we think is recent is relevant. No, some of the most relevant things are some of the most ancient things. Well, Jesus talked about taking from the household, or took from the house things that were old, but things that were new. And so we never don't leave the old behind. We take out some of our treasures that are found in the attics and the basements of the Christian tradition, and we take them out, and they become really, as we adopt to they become really relevant, and they're the most ancient, they're not the most recent. So this is what it means, the difference between adaptation and adoption. And the church has to adapt to cultural shifts. It does not adopt the cultural shifts. And that's the second part of mad, because the world will see us resisting and not going in the direction of the culture sometimes, and will think that we are mad. But we are mad in a good sense, because we do move, we do adapt. I mean, hello, I still love Southern gospel music, and I'm still trying to take the best of it, the old, and bring it into this 21st century world with our 22nd century kids. But I'm also realizing that our kids have a whole new musical style, and the music that brought me to Jesus is not going to be the music that brings them to Jesus. And so I've got to adapt, and I've got to learn to embrace different genres of music, like hip hop and rap and certain country blends that I'm a country and Western fan, but some of this country rock and all this, I've got to adapt to that. I don't have to adopt some of the lyrics and some of the language, the swearing that goes in some of these songs. But I've got to adapt my musical taste to the world in which we live, this 21st century world. The last here, and the acronym that's out there, move, adapt, or die, means if you don't move or adapt, you do die. But I think what I want you to hear is a mad disciple is one that moves, adapts, and does die to live. Do you hear that? Dies to live. This is Mark 8:34-35. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. This is John 12:25-26. Whoever loves his life loses it, and whoever hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. If anyone serves me, he must follow me. Paul calls it dying to self. This is Galatians 2:20, Colossians 3:3-5. What do you say? What do you die to? Well, you die to self. You die to old expectations. You die to putting yourself first and seeing everything through just your own lenses. This is a culture that is so individualism was, in some ways, is kind of the invention of the modern world. And then we went to rugged individualism. Then we went to narcissism. Now we're in solipsism, which is a step beyond. At least a narcissist knows other people exist. A solipsist lives in a universe, YOUNIVERSE, of one. And it's all about them. Everything's about them. We can't sing How Great Thou Art anymore because everybody's singing How Great I Am. It's all about me. I am exalted. You hear, you are exalted, but when you look at it and how we sing it, and we're exalting ourselves. So this is the kind of die to live. You die to self, to live to God. When we focus on self, our disappointments loom large because we have nothing else to focus or frame life on. We can't focus on or frame life on anything other than ourselves, so we start living a miserable life. You say, what else do you die to? Well, you die to ways of living that characterize your life before Jesus. And these things need to truly die for us to truly live, to die to money. Is money your only morality? Die to it. Die to addictions. Die to a safety-first, risk-free life. Die to success. Die to reputation. Die to reputation. Die to people-pleasing. Die to consuming. Die to stuff. John Stark, in his new book, The Secret Place of Thunder, Trading Our Need to be Noticed for Hidden Life with Christ, he distinguishes between terminal death and paschal death. And I'm just going to read this just because I like this so much, this little distinction here. He talks about terminal death. Terminal death is a death that ends life and ends possibilities. Maybe it's your literal biological life, or maybe it's the thing you protect and love so much that to lose it means the end of any meaningful continuation of life. Paschal death, this is page 164. Paschal death, on the other hand, is a death that while ending or losing one kind of life, opens a second form of life, deeper and richer than before. Grain is buried in the ground as in a tomb and dies, but then it grows into new, transformed life. It is generative death. And this is what the D in mad means. A generative death. So I ask you, is it dead and buried? What you died to once will often come back. And you'll have to die to it again unless you bury it. So it can be dead. But is it buried? And once you bury it, you rise to new life with Christ. And you live as a mad disciple in a mad world. Where mad means you move on. You adopt, but you don't. You adapt, but you don't adopt. And you die to self that you might live to Christ.